This video is brought to you by my latest book, How to Play Melodic Rock Lead Guitar, a comprehensive guide to doing exactly that, playing melodic rock lead guitar. This is not just some collection of scale patterns and tabs, although you do get plenty of those, but you also get an entire chapter on how to come up with your own licks, as well as video content, tutorials and demonstrations, loads of jam tracks, and all the way through I'm encouraging you to expand your fretboard knowledge and showing you how you can think in a more musical and melodic way. Check out the link in the description for more details. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. A little bit of pentatonic noodling for you there, and that's because this week's video is kind of a companion piece to last week's video where we were also talking about pentatonic scales. The focus of that video though was very much on, how to stay on one part of the neck and play multiple different pentatonic scales to accommodate the chord changes in the piece of music you're playing over as they go past. The other side of that is you want to be able to just use any pentatonic scale along the entire length of the neck. Have total freedom to go wherever you want, and that is something that many people often report they have problems with. They know the pentatonic boxes, they practice them and they can play them, but for some reason when it comes to like playing a solo, improvising, jamming, that kind of thing, they often feel like they get trapped in one particular location, and that's what we're going to address today. Some people have commented that, well, why do you always view everything from a pentatonic perspective? Why not think in terms of major scales or minor scales? And I'm going to address that later on in the video, but before we get to that, here is a little bit of an explanation about how I was able to have the mobility to pretty much wander around the neck anywhere I wanted to in that solo you've just heard. Here it is.
Here is the explanation.
Okay, so earlier I was soloing in C sharp minor. So let's have a look at C sharp minor pentatonic. There it is, mapped out along the entire length of the neck. And naturally what we tend to do is break that down into individual patterns, like this one, for example, which I'll play on the guitar. Here it is. And one thing that many of my students report to me is that they'll feel trapped within that particular box, whichever one it is that they're playing in, and they don't know how to kind of progress either in this direction or maybe back down in this direction. So it's really simple, okay? I might be doing some kind of noodly little thing in that shape there. Right, so let's say I'm going to finish on that note there, right? Instead of playing that note with, like, probably this finger, why not slide up like that instead of going, right? And then what has happened is you are now in this next pattern here. And then, have a little bit of a twiddle around in there. And then maybe I'm looking at those two notes there on the second string. How about if I just slide up so I don't go I do that, and that takes me into this pattern. And then there's another opportunity there. Anywhere you kind of land in the pattern, there or there or there, when you kind of go into the higher note on whatever string you're on, instead of doing it with the finger that would normally take you there, slide up to it with your index finger, and then that will take me into the next pattern. And then suddenly I'm in the next pattern. And then maybe like that. I do that, and then suddenly I'm in the next pattern. Let's do it on the top string this time. So instead of going like that, I'm going to go like that, and then all of a sudden I'm in this pattern. Which is an octave above where I started down here. So you're just looking for these slides, and if you can visualize the next pattern up, and this is usually the root cause of the problem. People will know the patterns kinda, but you know, it's if they start on the lowest note of the pattern in any case, they can remember the pattern. So a good thing that you can practice is start kind of going through the patterns from about halfway up. So like this, take this pattern here, for example. Okay, how about practicing it just from here? Or practicing it from here even. Like that, so that when you arrive there, you might have been playing. When you do that little slide up into the next pattern, you know, you've already got your bearings. You're not kind of thinking, okay, I need to start down here on the 6th string and work my way up to that. And this works in both directions. I can, let's say I was up here, playing the familiar box 1 pentatonic, just doing some kind of... Well, how about there? Instead of going, I go, and then down in the pattern below. It's just having that sort of knowledge of your surroundings, really, and being able to slide between them. The root cause, as I said, is when people can only play a particular pentatonic shape from one particular starting point. It's like knowing your way around a town, but only if you enter via this particular street or that particular road or whatever. You need to get your bearings in the pattern, whichever way in you come, whichever string you enter it from. So start practicing that, like C sharp minor pentatonic pattern number 5. Let's start it on, pick a number. Start it on the 4th string. Pattern 2, started on the 2nd string. Pattern 3, let's start it on the 4th string. Okay, so that whichever way into the pattern you find yourself getting to it, then you immediately are aware of your surroundings, and you don't have to think back to, okay, let's go down to the bottom of the pattern, lowest note on the 6th string, and count my way up to establish, you know, my sort of sat-nav, location. That's how I do it. And it's another one of these things where it was necessitated years ago by having a guitar that used to break strings. So I would often have to find ways of getting notes that I needed that weren't available in the pattern. If I lost this string, for example, and I didn't have these 2 notes, then, you know, a run that might go would become something like that. And you know, and that sort of taught me the where things repeated around the neck, and just made me a little bit more mobile in this lateral sort of plane, if you like. Anyway, that's just a little tip for learning your pentatonic locations and mapping things out on the neck. Don't just practice the scales from the 6th string. Practice them from each of the strings. Find a way in on the 2nd string, 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever, and you'll find your sense of direction on the neck and your knowledge of your surroundings will increase massively. So now you know what to do. Go away and have some fun with it. And as always, there's a full tab for the solo that we kicked the video off with in both Guitar Pro and PDF formats, along with a clip of me playing the solo, that explanation you've just seen there, and a jam track to play along with yourself. That is all up on my Patreon page. There's the address. Link is in the description. As I'm sure you know by now, if you're a regular viewer, it's $3, about £3 a month, and you get access to all of these additional goodies and jam tracks and tabs and stuff that go along with these YouTube videos. And a massive, massive thank you to everyone who supports me in that, or any of the other ways, all of which are downstairs in the description. Okay, so why do I always bang on about pentatonic scales then? Well, let's take the example of A minor pentatonic. It has the notes of A, C, D, E and G. And typically I would play that over any kind of chord sequence which had a sort of A minor centre of gravity, if you like, a tonality that was an A minor chord. Everything seems to resolve onto the A minor chord. Use A minor pentatonic. But there will be other chords in that chord sequence. There might be an F chord, there might be a G chord. Well, that F chord obviously has an F note in it, and that's not in the scale, so I can add that in. And the G chord, if you think about when you strum just a regular open G chord, the one of the open strings that's in there is the 2nd string, the B string. So a G chord has a B note in it. Right, okay, so there's another note I can add into my A minor pentatonic, and instead of it being A, C, D, E, G, now it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, I played an A natural minor scale, an Aeolian mode, but maybe that A minor jam track that I'm playing over doesn't have an F chord in it. Maybe it's got a D chord in it. You often see those two chords together, A minor to G to D and back to A minor, and you can quite easily craft that so that it resolves, sounds finished, is kind of centered around the A minor chord. Now that D chord has an F sharp note in it. Okay, so I'd add that into the pentatonic. The G chord still brings the B note along for the ride, so now I've got a scale. If I add the B and the F sharp into the A minor pentatonic, I've got a scale that goes A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, then G. Okay, which is, as students of music theory will tell you, it's just a G major scale, but you're kind of emphasising the A note as the tonality. So now, instead of an A natural minor scale, I played an A Dorian mode. Now, either of those two scales, the A natural minor, Aeolian, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or A Dorian, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, they both have 7 notes in them. But the pentatonic is a 5-note scale. It's 5/7 of either of them. And I can just harvest notes from the underlying chords and add those to the pentatonic and get whatever mode is appropriate for the situation I'm playing in. If you already know 5/7 of every major or minor mode you need, because you know the major and minor pentatonics, then it's better, I think, and makes more sense to build from that than starting from scratch and thinking in terms of full-on major scales and full-on minor scales as a separate entity from the pentatonic universe. It's how I learned to do it. It's how I learned how to play modes. Ironically, at the time I was learning to do this, I was reading interviews in guitar magazines with people like Mike Landau and Steve Lukather and all the great and the good, where they were talking the modal language. I didn't have a clue what they were talking about, but ironically that's exactly what I was doing until one day the penny dropped and it all sort of clicked into place. So that's the reason I tend to think in terms of everything as being a pentatonic, that you decorate in a particular way with the notes that are there in the underlying jam track or chord sequence. Think of it like this. The pentatonic scale is like your basic cheese and tomato pizza, and then you can add whatever toppings you want onto that for whatever variety is going to float your boat. And in this case, the analogy is that the different toppings are the different notes that you add to the pentatonic scale, and you harvest those notes from the underlying chords. It's, for me, I think, a very, very adaptable way of viewing everything, and it's certainly, when I look down at the fretboard when I'm playing, it's how I view things, and it seems to work for me, so maybe it'll work for you as well. And that is very much the video for today, folks. Hope you found that useful and informative, and perhaps even entertaining in some small way. And if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so, and why not drop me a like as well while you're at it. And don't forget the live stream every Friday, 5 PM UK time. We just have a beer in the chat because it's Friday, and it is a great way to kick off the weekend. I'd love to see you there if you can make it, but for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.